In this video, we're going to talk about the use cases for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is unique in that it's not government-controlled money. Some Bitcoin enthusiasts believe that Bitcoin can change the world. Roger Ver, one of Bitcoin's earliest promoters, has an interesting perspective on this.
I'm pretty open about my philosophy. I consider myself a voluntarist, and that means that I think that human beings should be allowed to do absolutely anything they want so long as it's peaceful, and they shouldn't be allowed to use aggressive violence against anybody else. And I don't make exceptions for groups of people, and especially not for groups of people who get together and put on uniforms and work in buildings that happen to have flags out in front of them. And one of the things that really upsets me the most about the world that I live in is I see governments, and they have this thing called fiat currency that they completely control. And not only do they control it, but they can print as much of it as they want at any time. And then they use that money to build all sorts of tanks and bombs and airplanes and murder people all over the world. And all that's being paid for by printing money. And with Bitcoin, because there's a limited supply, that sort of thing can't happen in the world. And so I see a world in which everybody is using Bitcoin as just a much, much, much happier and peaceful and safer world for every single human being on the planet.
As you know, citizens must trust their governments to be responsible with how they print their money and how they manage their monetary policy. When this trust is misplaced, things can go spectacularly wrong, like in Venezuela, which is beset by government corruption and hyperinflation. People there are using Bitcoin to protect their savings and buy necessities. Because Bitcoin is not owned or controlled by a central authority, it avoids some of the flaws of government-issued money. Government-issued money, also known as fiat money, can be printed at will and devalues the existing supply. What we're showing you right now is the Philippines currency over the past 50 years compared to the US dollar. Wouldn't you be upset if your retirement savings turned into a quarter of its value? The way Bitcoin is designed is that less of it is produced over time, and the more people that use it, the more stable it will become. This is explained in greater detail in our video about the economy of Bitcoin. Another advantage of Bitcoin over traditional money is in cost. Micropayments are a new class of transactions that weren't possible due to inefficient credit card payment networks. We're going to show you a 1-minute clip of what really happens behind the scenes when you tap your card.
My mother looks at a credit card payment, she thinks that it works like this. You walk into a store, you present your card gets read, somehow scanned, swiped, dipped by the POS terminal, stands for point of sale. And then there's this conversation that happens behind the scenes between your bank and the POS terminal. Maybe it happens through a network or a card association like Visa, MasterCard, Amex. And a lot of people think that's just how it works. And in reality, the real picture is so much more convoluted, complicated, fragmented than that. In fact, there are somewhere between 6 and 12 intermediaries involved in just about every single credit and debit transaction that takes place worldwide, each of whom represent a single point of failure and an opportunity for fraud. They also represent another hungry mouth to feed. And so this entire process not only has to happen once, but actually twice for every single credit card transaction. First, there's the authorization, and then second, there's the capture of the authorization.
As you can see, a credit card transaction needs to change hands between multiple intermediaries, each taking their cut. This is essentially the reason why you may see some businesses with a minimum purchase amount. Bitcoin cuts out the middleman and allows direct transfer of funds. Furthermore, these credit card companies and bank networks can choose to increase their prices whenever they want. Businesses will always look to pass their increasing costs to the customer, which we see in the form of ever-increasing cash advance fees, credit card interest rates, and other penalties. Every year, over $600 billion US is sent between family members overseas in a transfer called remittance. Traditional remittance networks, like Western Union, are expensive, charging on average 8% in fees. Bitcoin is able to disrupt this costly industry by quickly, safely, and cheaply sending money over the internet for pennies. In fact, charities like UNICEF accept Bitcoin donations because it's so cost-effective for cross-border payments. Lastly, Bitcoin allows you to 100% control your money. It's censorship resistant. You can send money to whoever you want without having a company or government blocking you. You may have seen these messages many times trying to process an international transaction. The truth is, money held in your bank on behalf of a customer is owned by the bank, with a promise to return the money when asked. If customers truly controlled their money in the bank, then we would never see stories like these ones being displayed here. With Bitcoin, as long as you control your private key, you fully control your money. If you want to know more about private keys, please see our video on Bitcoin usage. To summarize, there are 3 main use cases for Bitcoin. Number 1, as an alternative to government money and protection against bad monetary policy. Number 2, as a more flexible and cost-effective payment solution with no intermediaries, allowing cheaper cross-border remittances and microtransactions. And number 3, as a censorship-resistant place to store your money. You can access it whenever you want and send it to whomever you want. Thanks for listening.